Blockchain and the supply chain. Joining us to speak about that today, Anant Kadiyala, Director of Blockchain and IoT Industry Solutions at Oracle. Anant, welcome.
Thank you, Russ.
Anant, I would think it's fair to say that certainly in 2017 there was a tremendous amount of interest generated in blockchain, and quite a number of people, I think, in the supply chain world are interested in its application there.
Absolutely.
What's behind that? Walk us through that.
Yeah, so 2017 has seen a lot of interest in blockchain, and like you rightly said, many companies have started doing pilots and such. The key reason for this interest is that blockchain offers us an architecture for trust, and that means business partners can now have this shared visibility of trusted information. So that unlocks different business efficiencies across the supply chain continuum, and we'll go into more details as we go along.
Well, I would imagine that the viewer is going to want to know right off the bat, can you give me some examples of how blockchain is being used in supply chain?
Yeah.
Give us some if you can.
There are several good examples. One is tracking the source of the raw materials or the components and products and such, and tracking their provenance and genealogy, and also through their journey along the supply chain, right? So along the way, there are a few interesting things that blockchain can offer. For example, if you take something like Billa Flooding, there have been efforts since the 80s to electronify the Billa Flooding. Some have worked, some haven't worked. Now there's a new interest with blockchain in electronifying Billa Flooding and customs declarations and such. Because blockchain gives us this horizontal architecture where everybody can participate, and now it makes it easier to adopt and get to the next level of automation and optimizations, right? So then we have journey tracking. Take the example of transporting flowers or medicines and milk and meat that need to be temperature controlled. Up until now, some truck fleets were able to offer that monitoring, but most truck fleets had a challenge with that. Because of that, there have been gaps, right? Now, even if some trucking company was able to offer visibility into that, sharing of that information was not easily possible in a trusted way. Blockchain enables that kind of shared, trusted information. And then moving along, there are also use cases in trade finance from a banking standpoint, where things like invoice factoring and such, that are becoming popular and interesting for both banks and the suppliers. Yeah, and there's a few other smaller use cases too. We can keep going on, but these are the big ones. Yeah.
I want to turn to Internet of Things, and I guess here's the. I'm going to posit this: blockchain and IoT go hand in hand. True or false?
Absolutely. Yeah. So look at it this way. IoT is the tracking and monitoring mechanism, right? And at different points for different use cases, the way you do it is different. While IoT provides that constant tracking and monitoring, what blockchain offers us is the ability to capture that or events of interest. We don't put everything into the blockchain, only the events of interest that need to be shared with other parties. Those things you write to the blockchain, so they go hand in hand.
Well, now it's interesting. Sometimes blockchain is referred to as this system. Sometimes it's referred to as this system of record for shared truth. Yeah. Right? Well, is that really its main and only use, or is there something much more extensive than that?
What I would say is, that's the killer app right now, right? So definitely, right out the gates, that's the value we can harvest from a blockchain. But outside of that, there's some interesting concepts, that are developing out there. They're not being commercialized yet because they're still in the academia. Certain concepts like homomorphic encryption, quadratic voting. some economic concepts around prediction markets and so on. They're still in the academia that that needs some more evolution and maturization before we can commercialize. But the thing is, once companies start implementing blockchains as this shared, trusted system of record across partners and such. So that forms the basis. That's the first step in that direction. And later on, they can build upon this implementation, upon this success and this learning that comes from it, and get into the next level of new modalities and paradigms, which we don't know yet. In a few years, they will come about, right? So, but this forms the right basis, and right off the bat too, there's plenty of value to be gained across the ecosystem. The key thing is, if you think about it, most of these digitalization technologies, right? It is about compressing resources, time, risk, entropy, and wastage in the system. And IoT and blockchain working hand in hand can deliver many of those promises across various points in the supply chain continuum, well, like we talked a few minutes ago.
Anytime we're talking about technology of any sort, there are do's and don'ts that users clearly need to be aware of. If you would illustrate for us what those might be.
Yeah. Like any new paradigm, right? It takes a few iterations for most companies for them to wrap their head around and make sure that they're on the right path. With blockchain, also, the best path is to start with a pilot, work with a few trusted partners that you have had a long, good relationship with, where you can quickly come to agreements on how to build the network, what the governance should be, what the security model should be, and what kind of information you want to share among yourselves. I think once that's done, and once companies go through a pilot, they'll learn a lot, because blockchain is not just a technology play, right? It's actually a functional play, because you're touching the core operational aspects of the company's operations and such. So, and the second thing is, blockchain also espouses a lot of other concepts, like we talked about, right? It's not just technology, but also governance, economics, and in future tokenization and other aspects as well, right? So because of that, it's important to do that pilot to start building that mental scaffolding at an organizational level, and bring the awareness as to how one might harvest these technologies and what business values they can derive, and that will form the right platform for them to leapfrog from.
That's useful advice, I must say. Any final thoughts that you want to share with the viewer?
Yeah, I think many, as I talk to companies and partners and such, right? Some people are early adopters, and they're accepting and going on board, and we have many customers who are working with us at the moment. And then there are also many who don't feel they're ready. They're on the fence with should we start now, or is it the right time or not, right? My suggestion is get started sooner than later, because these technologies have a lot of promise and value, and it does take a few iterations within the company to arrive at the right fit architecture and solution for their bespoke needs, right? And because of that, a few quick pilots, or one pilot at least, will help them take a long way.
We started out by saying that there has been and continues to be a great deal of interest in blockchain. Given that, what you have shared with us today has been quite useful. Anant, I know you're busy here at the conference, but you found time to sit down and speak with us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Anant Kadiyala, Oracle, speaking with us today about blockchain and the supply chain. Thanks for watching.